YouTube. I'm here today with the Time and Place book tag. This was started by the wonderful Jen Campbell, and I'll link that video in the description bar. It's a miracle I actually know who started the tag. Anyway, so this tag is basically certain books that harken you back to a certain time and place in your life that have some sort of meaning to you. In chronological order, we will go to 1993, 1994, around the time when I was in second grade. It was raining outside, it was an indoor recess, and the teacher told us to lie down on the floor, and she read us a book. And that book was The Boxcar Children, book number 1. And that was the first time that I felt so connected and so in tune with reading a book and listening to a book and having that kind of experience with a book of just that kind of enjoyment but being at peace at the same time. And just, you know, it really I wrote a story about it afterwards about how my teacher is a bookworm and how she infected me at that point in time to become a person obsessed with reading and trying to get that experience again of that peace and that enjoyment with reading. Okay, the next one, we're gonna hop ahead a few years and go to 1996, 1997. I was in the 6th grade at that time. The place would be in my bedroom and me in bed and my dad sitting beside my bed, and he was reading me Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase, which is book number 2 in the Nancy Drew series. And it was a really hard time in our lives because my mom was just going through treatment for breast cancer. My brothers were out of the house, and I was going through a lot of issues at school as well. And then this was the first time that my dad had ever done something like that, where he said, you know, I'm gonna read you a book while, you know, before bed. Because he's always been more of like a very practical kind of man, a very like, you know, things that need to be done as opposed to things that things like that kind of emotional connection there of having someone read you a book. So that really, you know, affected me. I'm not gonna cry. My mom's okay, by the way. Just, you know, I always tell people she had breast cancer, like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, she's alive. It's okay. Like, she's a survivor. She's a fighter. Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead another 4 years to 10th grade. So this is 2001, 2002. Place is kind of more of a setting than well, the place is a school, but it's more of like the setting and the way that we were in the classroom. We were all kind of seated around in a circle, and there were certain rules that we had to follow, and if you broke the rules, you'd have to sit on the floor and you couldn't talk anymore. And, you know, certain students would like call you out, and the teacher was kind of in charge of all this. It's because we were studying Lord of the Flies. And that really, like, it was quite a really interesting experience. That was, it wasn't the first time I had a teacher, especially in high school, who had used something other than, you know, notes on a board and stuff like that and reading out loud. It was an actual interactive experience that really affected me as a potential teacher at that point too. But it was also the first time that I'd read a book that really, I felt, connected me to my present society and had me really questioning the philosophical and sociological impacts, or even just the philosophical and sociological aspects the book was saying about our society and in our present day. It wasn't just a story, it was more than that. And that's Lord of the Flies really affected me in that way. So not only was it like a great experience as a student and as a potential teacher at that point, but also as a reader. Okay, I'm gonna jump forward 2 years, not as big a leap, to February 2004. The place is Nicaragua, specifically, it was a little hut, and each house in the community had a hut, and some of them were using it for chickens, and some of them were using it as a place to house guests. My school every year organized this trip called the North-South Awareness Project, and it wasn't, a lot of people call it like a mission trip of some sort. Like, we weren't going down there to preach. We were going down there to experience their side of life, and this trip completely altered me as a person. And I read a book down there called You Shall Know Our Velocity by Dave Eggers. It was the second Dave Eggers book I had read. I'd read Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius before that, and I kind of saw this one and I thought, oh, you know what, I'll bring it along. Don't know if I'm going to read it, but it was the right book at the right time. Because the book, if you don't know, is he finds a large amount of money and he decides to go around and spread the wealth. And it really spoke a lot to my experience down there, and the experience I was having, and the ideas I was being confronted with, and just like the whole, your whole world kind of being shooken up, and it was really appropriate book for me at that time. The next book I want to talk about was actually a big reread for me. The time was December 2010. I don't know if you remember, but Heathrow Airport was closed down at that time, and I was in Heathrow Airport for 5 days, trying to get another plane ride home. And the book was The Count of Monte Cristo. This book I first had encountered in, I believe it was 10th grade, and it was just one of my all-time favorite books. It was one of the first literary classics that I had read outside of required reading for school, and it just really opened my eyes to this amazing genre and idea of how much you can include in a book and still have it be really entertaining, and the kind of the intellectual capacity that's expected of someone reading it. You have to kind of get certain things and understand certain things. They're not all laid out flat for you. And so when I was stuck in the airport, there's not a whole lot you can do. You can only spend an hour on the payphone before it hung up on you. Oh, it's so frustrating. I don't want to talk about it. But that book was something that I was able to read, and that was able to, take up time away from sitting there and twiddling my thumbs or looking for an open socket so I could, contact my family and be like, I'm still here, I'm still okay, still don't have a flight home, but yeah, so that was, just a quite interesting experience. So that's my 5 books for the time and book place tag, or time and place book tag. Let me know if you've done this tag, if there's one particular book that reminds you of a certain time and place, and remember to keep on reading. What's it called? Oh my god. Oh. Okay. Oh boy, even I bore myself.